Let's talk about Lucha Underground for a bit.
Sure.
Tell us about all the hats you wore there: wrestler, commentator, director.
I was very fortunate enough to be taught agenting from another perspective and correctly. So I was that was a blessing. The commentator in Spanish and English, I had no clue what the fuck was going on. I mean, I kind of had an idea, but I've never done it before. So Matt Stryker is one of my closer friends, but if it wasn't for Matt, my success as a commentator on Lucha Underground was because of Matt. The way he guided me, the way he taught me, the way we bounced off each other, it was perfect. So I did that. And then, I was invited to assist in the creative process. Once something was missing a little bit of this and that, and they were like, Vamp, how about, and what do you think? So I got to start to learn how to work on that side of things. Eric Van Wagenen, who was the executive producer, we had met at the Grammys when he was working, I think it was for MTV, and I was the bodyguard for Milli Vanilli. And we were there the night that Milli Vanilli was so drugged out of their minds that they messed up the choreography and the voices. And Eric and I were side by side. And when we started working on Lucha Underground, it was the weirdest thing. So because of that, I was very fortunate enough to be invited to the editing meetings. That is a lot of talent think that the talent doesn't understand that the commentator is the one who makes you who you are, and the camera person, but the editor who tells the story. Without that, you're never making it in this business. And I got to learn all that. So my hats were many, and they were awesome.
You wrestled and mentored Pentagon Jr. Kind of follow up with what you feel about, or how you feel about him blowing up in WWE right now. What's it like?
We all knew. It was just a matter of time. They were going to fire him because he wasn't catching on to the American mentality. He was doing things like Mexicans, sometimes they do a big dive and then they get right up and they bow and they ask for applause. And it's kind of like, well, if you're in a street fight, is that what you're going to do? So he got caught up in that stuff and he didn't understand how to erase that here. And he was always interacting with the people, desperately trying to win his spot because his work was fabulous. But I told him, I said, brother, don't respond to the crowd for the whole match. Don't, when they call your name and they're telling you to, go f yourself or they love you, don't even acknowledge them. You're going to drive them crazy. At the very end, when it's that moment, you fire up and you just turn. Just give them that little glance. They're going to go bananas. So once that started to happen, less is more, he started to get it. And nobody wanted to work with him because they weren't confident that he could get it. And they were going to fire him because they couldn't find a storyline. And that's when we came up with the master. He didn't know until the day of the match that it was me. But that experience was probably the crowning jewel in my artistic life, for sure.
Okay, so another former WWE star, now in AEW, Prince Puma, also known as Ricochet.
Yeah.
You were with him in the early days.
Yeah.
What was that like, working with him?
It's spectacular. I mean, there are some guys like, what are you supposed to say? Because you got to remember, at that time, the things he was doing, that was the first time anybody had seen that. I mean, he spent so much time in Japan, so that made me a fan of his. Not all the, and then when you see it live, it is you see it the first time you see it, you can't digest it because it's so unreal. So you need to see it 2 or 3 times to really appreciate it because he is so awesome. But when you do that kind of stuff and you're on TV every week and you do it every week, it's obvious. Sorry, this is biting my balls. It's obvious that it's a show. Because you're repeating the exact same things, and as impressive as it is, it doesn't excite people because it's not realistic. Pro wrestling works because there's something in the character that you, the fan, can relate to. You come there to scream and get your stress out and all that kind of stuff. So you find a wrestler that's kind of like you, and you live that through them. That's how pro wrestling kind of works. But, you know, when you see that every single week, it's phenomenal, but it doesn't get the same reaction after a while. That's kind of what happened there.
All right. What do you think the biggest reason for Lucha Underground ending was?
Well, I know the exact reason, but for legal reasons, I can't say anything.
All right. What happened to the talent contracts that made so many headlines at the time?
I know exactly what happened, but for legal reasons, I'm not allowed to say anything. I know exactly what happened, and it was a fucking nightmare. No, go ahead.
TitleMatchNetwork.com